Yep. All right. So it includes here the problem statement, right? An analysis, who your stakeholders are, like, roles of people and their names. It includes ideas that you come up with, high-level ideas, mission, vision, all that good stuff. This is a very high-level summary. It should be just one page. You can print it out on a 8.5 by 11. Then you have a charter. You populate here a bunch of things. We'll get to this later. Then you have the scope. So the scope is what we talked about, right? So you're gonna discuss here the approach to define the scope. That's your scope management plan, basically. It could be small. I mean, you don't have to write reams of paper. It could be a bullet list of 6 things, right? We're gonna sit down around a table and brainstorm ideas. We're gonna focus on our top 5 problems. That's it. And we're gonna make sure we can deliver something within 3 months. That's your approach. So people will define it differently. Then your project objectives, as we recall from yesterday, objectives could be qualitative or quantitative. So you can put here the type, which one it is. You list, a number of objectives. It could be 1, 2, 3, 6, maybe 10. Again, you can adjust this. The goals, they should be specific, measurable, and etc. So you want to put also a threshold. Remember, we talked about control having thresholds, limits. So your lower limit, one goal could be respond to calls between the hours of 3 and 7 by middle schoolers, for example. Your lower limit could be for call volume, could be, let's say, 10 calls a day. And the target could be 15 and the higher limit could be 25. Why do you need a lower and higher limit? You want a lower limit to know that you're performing the minimum acceptable. The higher limit is because you don't want to push yourself too far. That's going to increase cost and risk and could burn out other parts of your project or your service. So you want to have a target, which is what you're trying to get to, and an upper and a lower. If you reach the upper, that's great. That means, you exceeded your expectations. If you're below the lower, that means some work needs to happen to bump up things. And then you come up with a scope statement, which is kind of a summary of these objectives and goals written in plain English that a business person who doesn't know much about what you're doing can understand very easily. If you have a change control board, you put their names here, their roles, and then as you go on with your project, you can have change requests. All right, here's an example of an RTM, similar to what we saw on the slide. You put your main requirement here, if there are any sub-requirements, who owns it, who's the person on the team who brought this to fruition, the priority of it, how are you going to test it, and how are you or the customer is going to accept it from the team, right? So for example, crisis line shall operate between the hours of 3 to 7. The owner could be, sponsor. The priority is high. The test case is you actually, have someone who's staffed between 3 to 7. You make calls and the calls get answered. And the acceptance criteria would be calls are answered within 30 seconds or less between the hours and 3 and 7. And the status could be it's implemented or it's still being developed. So that's basically what we covered this morning, these 3 tabs. What we're going to do now is take a short break. I think we are at the break time. Let me check here. Yes, so let's take a break till 11:20. And then when you guys come back, you're going to work on this. We'll split you into 3 groups. And you will work on the project plan for the teen job fair or the teen program that we talked about earlier. So we'll bring back that slide. You'll go to your groups and together you'll work on populating the scope, RTM, and WBS tabs to the best of your ability in 15 minutes. And then we'll continue our discussion with the next knowledge area. All right. So I will pause here to see if there are questions before we break for a short break here. So we'll come back at 10:25. And if you have questions, you can ask them now or you can start your break.
Okay, so basically this is like the workbook we're trying to do. Can you go back to like the first part of the workbook, please? Yeah, like this part, like go up a little. Uh, so yeah, scope is so yeah, this is what we use to like set this up. Scope is basically what we're trying to do. Like I remember yesterday, Masood he talked about how his scope involved like a certain like area of like where it was happening, like a certain area in like Maryland. Like I remember, like I also remember like yesterday the like SMART, the acronym that we use for SMART. Like the scope has to be specific. So Masood apparently he was doing pretty well with that by saying it was like a certain part of like Maryland where the scope was taking has to be like manageable, like actually be able to use, attainable, realistic. Forgot what the T stood for, but it's all
Usually
right.
time bound. So
What?
time bound, you have a start and end date.
Oh right, yeah. Objective. So like objectives are basically, obviously, what we're trying to do. So like, you know, say this was like a project for like a new show, so new TV show, right? Scope would be like a good summary. Wait, actually, hold on. Before I go into all that, you, you said that often like small projects. Actually, maybe I'll come back for this later.